Good morning and good night to everyone who is watching. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bitcoin Q&A. It is Monday, September 25th. I am Q. This is A. We got some news stories to break down for you, and if we got time, we finally got so many news stories that we might not have time to actually hit too many questions, but we'll give you at least one. You know the drill, 21 million questions. McShane, how you doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. A little sleepy, but waking up here. We got a lot of exciting news in Bitcoin land today.
You
This
mean
is
Monday
great.
morning you're not already awake? You haven't run a 5K yet?
I had no. Tough time sleeping last night. So we're getting after it though. There's a lot going on in Bitcoin today, man. I guess like a brief overview. We got some Coinbase news. We got Microstrategy news. We got French Revolution news. All kinds of stuff going on. The president. I mean, one we can get out of the way real quick. The president of Madeira, this kind of like fake country by Portugal, was just reelected. So he's a Bitcoin advocate in theory. So this bodes well for the Orange Party growing.
Doesn't Madeira have like a Bitcoin policy? They view it as legal tender and it can be used in day-to-day trade.
To be honest, I don't know. I'm not really sure how accurate that is. I think
Valid.
Yeah, I would have to look into it a little bit. I think they're definitely doing something with Bitcoin and commerce. Maybe they don't have capital gains tax on it, but I know they get upset if you call them a country, but then they kind of hold themselves like a country. So I don't really know what it is. It's a free state outside of Portugal. But I mean, this guy, it's kind of like the RFK thing where it's like you have someone who sort of understands the concept of freedom. It's a niche, new, it kind of makes them feel younger, makes their campaign feel younger, but they don't really get it, but their speechwriters get it. So that's great. It's a start.
So what you're saying is it's despite it not being an American politician, it's still just a classic politician grifting for more votes, not really understanding or caring.
It is, but like so
But
I mean,
this
unlike
politician
other
won.
politicians, well, he won again, and he's also done good things for Bitcoin in the past and spoken on it at it, come to our events and advocated for it at home. So, I mean, whether or not he's faking it, he has to, back it up with a little bit of proof of work, you'd think. Yeah, so on the whole, just kind of nice to see. Always good to have more Bitcoin politicians in office. But yeah, that's probably our smallest story of the day. What do we want to dive into next?
Let's go to the French Revolution.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So basically, yesterday, all of Twitter or all of Bitcoin Twitter and Nostr was up in arms because a video is circulating of the New Zealand Prime Minister blaming citizens for taking mandatory vaccines to keep their jobs and feed their families. He was saying that the vaccines were never mandated and it was people's personal choice whether to take them or not. And if you remember anything about New Zealand during that era, that was absolutely not the case. People were forced to use public services, to even like go into stores and purchase goods, to leave their house. They're forcibly arrested and rounded up from the beaches, held in like fucking camps. Like New Zealand was one of the worst states during this period. And yeah, that's total lies. So a user on Twitter, he just quote tweeted this video of the prime minister and just said, "Bring back the guillotine." And he was immediately permanently banned from Twitter. And then you kind of saw this flurry of posts of people, reposting, "Bring back the guillotine," because it's insane that he couldn't say that. There were other tweets the same day of people saying this politician should be hung, and nothing happened to their accounts. So it's a little birdshot. I mean, I'm kind of in the camp of like, what did you think would happen? Like, it's Twitter. I mean, it's just like total, like it's totally censored, captured platform. Like you don't have freedom of speech there at all. I mean, if you think you do, it's a total farce. But the great thing is, this guy immediately took to Nostr. I can't tell you whether he was a Nostr user before this, but he certainly, his account kind of blew up after it. And yeah, so he's free to post whatever he wants. And the difference being, Nostr, like Bitcoin, a government agency would have to capture your private key to kind of have access to your account. So, I mean, there are ways you could store that securely and geographically. You could maybe even shard it, and yeah, you can just keep running that account, saying whatever you want. We had another case. Let me see if I can find this story so I get it accurate. I don't know. What do you think about that, Q? Should we bring back the guillotine? And if so, who is on the list?
I mean, I would love for every single politician around the world to have to sit in a court of law with a jury of their constituents and peers. That said, by the letter of the law, inciting violence is a removable offense, if you will.
But that's not he's not inciting violence, right? That's a pretty clearly a predictable opinion. Now, if you said we're erecting a guillotine at Times Square on Tuesday, that is a little more cause for
You're
concern.
calling to bring back the guillotine. I think that's different than Trump
I don't think
saying
people
like
really,
everyone
you know,
go
the last
march
times
towards.
I mean, both of these are just examples of free speech. Do you know the last time a guillotine was used legally?
It was like in the 50s, right?
It was in the 70s. It was almost in the
70.
80s. It was 1977.
Like it was.
Murder
This
was
was like less than 100 years ago.
publicly beheaded in France, in Paris. Yeah, this is like right after Mishima did Harikiri. You know, the last samurai to be beheaded. France was like, no, we're gonna one up you, and we're gonna behead this guy in public. And I don't know, man. It worked. That's a pretty good disincentive against corruption and crime. So like slightly related to this about controlling your own speech and keys to social media and just communication platforms as a whole. I think more and more of the world's going to wake up to the fact that we need technologies like Bitcoin and Nostr. I think in retrospect, looking back, it's going to spread to every corner of the internet because it's just such a valuable tool, especially when you hear this next story. So Saudi Arabia sentenced a secondary school girl to 18 years in jail and gave her a travel ban for posting tweets in support of political prisoners. So, I mean, this is another example of the Crown Prince's complete intolerance for independent, critical voices or freedom of
Insubordination.
speech. Yeah, and people are saying like, "Oh, but you should know where you live." I mean, you don't have that freedom in certain culture, in most like cultures throughout the world, to criticize the government or the ruling class. And it's
You
like,
can't
well,
even do that in the UK.
can you give me an example of that? What do you mean?
So freedom of speech is not protected when it in the UK. It is not protected when it is used in direction of the royal family or members of British Parliament and government.
Interesting. As a British subject, I did not know that. I should probably reel it in a little bit. My criticisms of the
They have very different laws around freedom of speech. I remember like during COVID, like when seeing some people who were being critical of the
Yeah.
government, getting arrested by the police, and then looking up like, all right, what are their laws? And their laws are slightly different, and they did not have freedom of speech as long as you would think.
Well, I mean, to be fair, our freedom of speech laws in this country are worth fuck all. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Our original thumbnail for today was bring back the guillotine, and we changed it partly because I'm not trying to get deplatformed, and I don't want our 15 followers to lose us forever in the void of YouTube. So that's a kind of slightly different issue. Okay, so like that's a private company, so you know the age-old argument. So you don't really have freedom of speech. You're playing by their rules. I agree with that. That's fine. You know what I mean? But where it changes is if you get a knock at your door for posting something on Noster, like maybe you doxed your own account. I think like the final takeaway I want to make about both of these cases, in one of them, this user was anonymous, and the other, this Saudi Arabian girl, was not, this schoolgirl. So this really underlines the importance of anonymity online. And I'm not going to say it's a right. It's something you have to fight for. But don't listen to people like Jordan Peterson or even Elon Musk on the subjects of online anonymity. It's essential for people throughout the world to have these tools to communicate things and to whistleblow on their governments and to report what is really happening in parts of the world and to just be free like creative beings. I mean, you need to feel secure in expressing yourself. I certainly think language can be hurtful, but it's not something that should be censored, you know?
No.
I'm much in the Tyler the Creator camp of just like log out.
Yeah, like
log out.
the slippery slope and the Pandora's box that get unlocked when we start to police each other's words is a very dangerous and scary place to put ourselves in. My stance has forever always been it doesn't matter if I like what is being said or not, because if we start to essentially silence opinions, at a certain point, my opinion as well will just get silenced. Maybe that's a selfish way of thinking about it, but maybe a lot more people need to really think about it in this way that you're literally one election away from you yourself being the one who's getting silenced, who doesn't have the same freedoms and equalities that the losing party today doesn't have, or the party not in power today.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know, the biggest takeaway for Bitcoiners in these stories is you should be backing up your accounts on Noster, if not using it independently of these platforms, if you want to continue to have a voice. I mean, right to free speech is not the right to be heard, but you got a pretty good shot. I mean, this is a niche community that doesn't take censorship lightly, and you can't be censored at the protocol level. So use Noster, I guess, is the solution in both cases. All right. Should we hit a question or next story of the day?
No, let's keep it rolling. You want to tell us what we got?
All right. Probably our biggest story of the day. Microstrategy has purchased 5,445 more Bitcoin. I'm sure you saw it this morning. It's pretty exciting to see. Basically, the game plan here was the company and its subsidiaries sold 403,362 shares to a couple other corporations for about 147 million. They then used all of that cash to purchase 5,445 Bitcoin. The price they got it at was a little more expensive than we're looking at today. It was 27K. We're floating just above 26K. And it put their kind of aggregate Bitcoin holdings at 158,245 Bitcoin. So this is an insane amount of holdings. It's not quite up there with Coinbase, but Coinbase is a different situation. Coinbase is custodying on behalf of other institutions. Although to the same note, not your keys, not your coins. So you could say that Coinbase does own those Bitcoin in some way. But yeah, MicroStrategy's up there, man. No one's ever going to be able to catch them. This is going to be the largest public Bitcoin holder forever. You can't mine to fill that gap. It's to the tune of thousands and thousands and thousands of Bitcoin. So I'm happy to see it. It's kind of interesting. I remember when they first bought Bitcoin and what it used to do to the price. If we go back 3-4 years, when did they start? Late 2019. Saylor started coming around to Bitcoin in 2020. Started buying some, I believe.
That summer.
Yeah, yeah, great times, but it would pump the price every time, this news. And you could see today this has absolutely no effect, not in this market. Everyone's bracing for some sort of crash. Actually, I'd like to get your take, Q, on the broader macro environment, because I saw nothing but bearish sentiment online all weekend, and I was basically glued to my computer.
Yeah, there's a little bit of overhead supply as far as the public markets go, and so the expectation has turned that, oh, the market's having a really hard time breaking above this. The Fed's not being helpful, so I don't know. The most interesting chart that I saw last week was that for the first time in a very, very, very long time, the Fed's dot plot, which essentially sort of maps out what the Fed thinks the Fed fund rate will be at a certain point in time in the future, was identical to what the markets had forecasted now. So that their lines were matching. And for a while, the Fed was saying higher for longer, but the market kept calling this bluff. But unfortunately, now the market is starting to believe the Fed statement that it's going to be higher for longer. That, I think, is what's causing this shift to bearishness more than anything. I always love to play, though, the very simple card of when everyone expects it to go one way, the market tends to find a way to go the other. So I'm really just looking at the S&P, and if it breaks above its level of resistance, which I am spacing because it's Monday and I didn't read this morning the exact number, but follow me on Twitter. I'll send a tweet out about where I think the line in the sand is, and if the S&P gets above that, everyone was wrong. And
A 4-5, right?
I think that sounds right. Like 4-1, 4-3, something like that.
Oh, we're over that. We're at 4-3. Yeah, maybe 4-4, but you had people calling for a crash to like 2-5, which I thought was hilarious.
I mean, the truth is we haven't had like that big market shakeout, and the other side of the coin is that in recent memory has really been like a cataclysmic shift. You had the whole chaos of 2020. Then I believe it was 2016. There was, or 2017. It was a shift in market direction, simply because Trump was pressuring Powell to do something about the markets. And then you had obviously '08, but something crazy triggered that. The question is, will something trigger this, or will this just be a slow, steady decline until someone's twisting the Fed's arm to, hey, start to change things? Like
Turn that printer on.
this has been going on for too long.
Yeah, I mean, compared to other depressions, yeah, overlay that data historically. This is really not that bad. I mean, we're not there yet. I think
No,
what
but
you're saying is accurate. It's just we haven't had the shakeout.
no, but here's the issue. Unlike other periods of real recession, actually, that's not even a fair statement because honestly, it has typically been policy error that has led us to it. But I would argue this is now monetary policy error, and we're at a point of no return where no matter what they do, they are triggering either a bull or a bear market, which is a little uncomfortable to think about. Again, not fair though, because the better part of this year has been a bull market. We were up over 20% on technical terms. That is a bull market in everything, stocks, crypto, whatever you want to measure it in, Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Yeah. So by that standard, I don't know. I'm rambling too much. You're letting me go in the weeds.
No, you're going. This is good. This is good. I like it. So are you selling? I mean, are you holding equities right now? What's the move here?
I'm in more cash. I'm still stacking, but as far as equities are concerned, I'm building cash positions again
Yeah,
and have been for most of the summer.
I'm right there with you. I sold all my equities. I sold some of them at a loss. I don't know, I always just kind of follow my gut at these things. And so I took a couple hits just because it feels important to have a cash and Bitcoin only position right now. And yeah, I'm just trying to buy up that Bitcoin before my man Saylor gets all of it.
So
What do you think? Go ahead.
go ask.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be insane to watch his lifestyle change over the next decade. I mean, this guy's gonna be living in a spaceship by 2030. He's gonna be so rich. He's gonna be the richest man in the world. He's gonna be the richest man. He's gonna be the king.
Well, how many cycles until Saylor is the richest man in the world?
Well, the cycle's coming to an end. So let's say I don't remember how many Bitcoin he owns personally. Okay, but he has a good bit of Microstrategy stock, and that is not a bad thing to hold at this time. So I think two or three, we start to get to see insane levels of wealth. I mean, you're talking, I think, $100,000 to $300,000 per coin. Yeah, that starts to look disgustingly good. I mean, and everybody. I think I tweeted out on Friday, people, a little bit of hopium. This is the last year being broke for a lot of Bitcoin hodlers. And I think that's true. I think people that have reluctantly entered the market in the last 2 years since the great kind of bull market of 2020, 2021, this is going to be their first experience with rapid wealth appreciation. Who are holding all this Bitcoin for the first time. You know what I mean?
How many do you expect to keep holding though? Like, do you expect that? Do you expect the number of long-term holders to remain flat, increase, or decrease should Bitcoin reach, let's say, super, super bullish, $300,000 a coin?
Oh, dude. Well, increase. I mean, it comes and goes, but the trend over time has been to increase. But that the data is a little bit skewed there because Bitcoins that are lost look like Bitcoins that are held. So all Bitcoins that have been lost since 2020 and before, I'm just picking an arbitrary number. It may look like someone's been diligently hodling, but in truth, they just kind of fucked up and lost their Bitcoin. And I don't think that's a small number. I mean, we hear cases all the time. We were talking about before the show, debating whether or not Luke Dasher actually was hacked. Either way, that's a major fuck up that or it's a nice 4D chess move to kind of get the IRS off his back. But I'm just saying, it happens. People make mistakes. People get comfortable holding. You go years with the same security setup, and suddenly you remember you don't know how it works. I mean, it's important to try these things regularly over the period of the year and threat model your setup and make sure everything's operating smoothly and just kind of oil the gears a little bit. I digress, but I think the number of hodlers will go up, but I think you shake them out. I don't think you hit 100K without massive amounts of even diehard maxis selling their Bitcoin. And let me tell you, I'll be right there with them. Just that's a huge psychological hurdle. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you see us? I don't see us extending much past 100K without a sizable drop and a good opportunity to buy more Bitcoin. Now it's a risky trade, but and I'm not saying sell your whole stack there, but seems like a pretty, it's a strategy that's worked well in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's just playing games with time in the market, in my opinion. But overall, do whatever you're most comfortable with. That cap gains tax, though, do not forget about that cap gains tax. It sneaks up on you real quick and fast.
Dude, if I'm 5x up, from all the Bitcoin I've been buying between 15 and 26K. It's all good. It's all good. We'll take care of it. I was listening to a late night Magoo space where he was really, I didn't realize he'd left the United States, but I was getting, he was making me dream about, a little safe haven in South America or Central America again, just paying an exit tax and leaving.
Dude, honestly, unless the U.S. changes its policies around Bitcoin, like there will inevitably be, I think, not mass exodus, but a significant chunk of people will leave for better tax incentives. Nothing more than that.
Yep. You see it in Puerto Rico. It happens over time, but they close all those loopholes eventually. There's no free lunches here. They're going to get you, unless you've diligently been accumulating non-KYC. I mean, yeah, there's kind of a trail. You owe your dues. Actually, Brandon Quittem had an interesting point on Twitter. I don't agree with it, but I thought it was an interesting thought experiment. Q, if you had the opportunity to pay off your share of the U.S. debt, I think it would amount to something like $264,000, and you would never owe a penny in taxes again. Would you do it? The reason this scenario is unrealistic is because, I mean, the U.S. would be at break even, and they're just never going to tax people again.
Yeah,
You'd have to see massive inflation for them to continue operating.
Like ignoring the fact that I wouldn't believe this like too good to be true deal.
Yeah. It's a great deal.
I would probably only do it if Bitcoin reached at least $10 million a coin. What? So that the tax would be about 2.7% of one Bitcoin being sold. Because if Bitcoin was $1 million, then you're paying $1 million a coin, and you only have one coin, you're paying about 26%.
But you've already paid over $250,000 in taxes, probably many times over. I don't know what age you started working at, but
you're saying like all of my past tax payments count towards this?
No. I'm just saying you're going to end up paying millions and millions in taxes over the course of your life if you continue to live in the United States.
Yeah.
Therefore, I would take the deal immediately. I would give them the cash. I wouldn't trust the government to hold this kind of deal, so I would never take it. But let's say ideal scenario, they are going to stick to their guns. You're never going to owe a penny in taxes again. You just pay off your share of the global debt. It's $263,000 per person. I would take it immediately.
Now, let me ask you this. What is your expectation, reaction, or how are they going to come back and, keep collecting on you? You accepted the deal. You paid the $267,000.
Yeah, they would turn around and screw you immediately.
Right.
They can't turn off. They cannot turn off that apparatus. People sometimes ask, why, if the government controls the money printer, am I also being taxed? It's because they can get away with it. The incentives are not aligned for them not to do it. They can have the secret tax of monetary debasement and the straightforward robbery of taxation at once. They're not going to pick one or the other.
The simple fact that you not only get taxed when you receive your income, but you're also being taxed as you are spending your money is the most preposterous side of this. Like, not like
you get taxed if you drive a little bit too fast on a road. You get taxed when you buy anything. You get taxed when you give a gift to someone. You get taxed when you pay someone to mow your lawn. You get taxed when you die. I mean, this is a universal truth. You get taxed if you're sick. You get taxed if you need medicine, and you get sold medicine that is unpatentable. Is patented rather than readily available solutions, just so they can tax you a little bit harder. It's insane. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the U.S. is going to get tricky. So we're going to let in millions upon millions of more migrants. And I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying the reason they do that is because they need people to be buying things in this economy and participating in it. That's why they let people into Europe. That's why Italian islands are being taken over. You think if they didn't want immigrants, they wouldn't sink those boats immediately at the coast of Morocco? Like, dude, no, this is the way the game is played. They want more people. We're going to see like a huge influx in population into the United States. I mean, if you look at a chart of which countries most of the populations, I mean, we've, million compared to the billions in India and China who are going to undergo a population collapse because they can't sustain it. And where do, the people spread out to? It's the United States, North America, South America, Europe, Africa.
I mean, here's something that I was preparing to say it, and as I was thinking, I was like, why did we? Oh, that's right. But do you remember that period of like the 90s and early 2000s where real estate developers would build towns? They would build entire communities, and towns would pop up. They would build the whole street and then sell the whole street one by one. And then, of course, the great financial crisis happened, and like aggressive real estate development like this was no more. Genuinely, we need to return to that. I just drove across the country, and I can tell you there's plenty of land. There's plenty of land to be developed. There's plenty of places to build up new cities and continue to expand, build these homes. I'm at a loss for words as to why we stopped doing that. And then, of course, the great financial crisis put such a strain. But I'm really setting up BlackRock to just like justify building up cities and then leasing these houses out.
They do. You see these developments all over. Go try to buy a secluded spot on the outskirts of Nashville. You can't. Go try to buy any secluded kind of property in Florida, Wyoming, New Mexico. Like, it's spreading out. I mean, you'll find these pockets. There are these places in the world where there's nothing. And in the United States, but you're absolutely right. They're going to get developed. They're going to destroy all of the natural habitats and all the great last kind of wonders of this country in the next 100 years or so, because they have to. Where are these people going to live? I mean, they might build them up vertically in cities. You got this 2G kind of travel grid, the 3D working and living space, but
have you heard of?
It only goes so far.
We talked about like when those videos came out of the Saudi Arabia, the line or the wall or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Have you heard the stories about what's going on over there?
No, so just that they're disappearing political dissidents from Twitter.
Well, dude, so there are. I can never step foot in Saudi Arabia after I say this, but like there are tribes that live in that part of Saudi Arabia. It's not isolated land.
Yeah.
And they are killing people who are refusing to leave, just point blank. They're just executing them just to.
Where have we done that before?
Here in this country.
Everywhere. Yeah. No, it's a terrible thing, but it's not. This is part of human nature.
It is nothing
Power
new.
expands and crashes. It's nothing new.
It is nothing new, but it is something still worthy of discussion and awareness.
Yeah, no. Sad to hear it. I think one thing we could talk about, I mean, going back to MicroStrategy a little bit, is we did already cover a little bit. Coinbase has been identified as the largest Bitcoin holder globally. I mean, I think we've known that for some time. So they own 25 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is about 5% of the total Bitcoin out there. Whereas MicroStrategy is at about 4.68 billion.
What's scary is the fact that Coinbase is technically holding it on behalf of customers. The vast majority, I know they have some of their treasury in Bitcoin as well. So some of that is their own.
Let me
But
look up their
MicroStrategy's,
treasury. They don't have that big of a treasury.
no, they still have some Bitcoin held in treasury.
No, but it's puny compared to some of these other public corporations. They
True.
didn't remember we were giving them shit last year.
No, they have like 100.
1 or
It's
2
like
years. Yeah.
it's like in
Because
the triple digits. It's not even 1,000 Bitcoin. I know that, but they still have like some versus MicroStrategy's. Their entire stack is their stack. My question is,
where do you
how
think
long?
MicroStrategy custodies it? Is
Well,
it their stack?
touche. But how long until Coinbase just says, the incentive here is better for us to rug our customers than it is for us to give these Bitcoin back? Like at $1
I
trillion,
mean, I think
5
you'll see them
trillion.
blow up in time. I think they're backing customer deposits 1-to-1
No,
in
there's no
segregated
chance.
accounts, which is the law. No, they're too busy pumping up their own bullshit coin. They have their own fucking coin. Like it's a casino. It's completely
At this point, they all
unregulated.
do.
Some of that's not their fault, but this is just the model. We see these guys get too far out over their skis. They get a hole that a gap that can't be bridged, and they get absolutely screwed, and they start dipping into the customer deposits for all the customers who are too retarded to withdraw their own Bitcoin. Which, I mean, to be honest, at this point, that's like super low IQ behavior to leave your assets on the exchange. There's really no excuse for it. I have less and less sympathy for people getting rugged on these exchanges. Just there's been so much push for education. The problem is people's funnel is not the same as my funnel or experience. So that's where the sympathy comes back. It's like their first encounter with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is like crypto.com or bitcoin.com, a nefarious website, or coinbase.com that's going to present you a sea
No,
of green coins, whatever's pumped the most in the last kind of 24 hours, and convince you to buy and hold and day trade where you have no chance. No chance. And the majority of the people doing this have no experience and no chance and no algorithm and no bots. They're entering trades manually into a computer, and they've already lost. And it leaves a bad flavor in the mouth of retail for this industry, and it leads to increased centralization of holdings in institutions and big corporations. I guess those two things are the same. In banks, also the same. In institutions, that's all you really need to say, which defeats the purpose of Bitcoin, in my opinion. I think if you're going to own it, you must self-custody it. It's a high bar. Get over it.
I don't disagree with what you said. Like Coinbase is an inherent evil, but I don't think it's fair to actually say they do more harm than good, because let's
I didn't say that.
fair, but it sounds like that, and I want to make clear that despite all of the harm that they do in this space, despite the fact that I think they very much are in line and in bed with many of the scammers that they promote, that they're in on the trade more times than not.
People lose their life savings every day.
I do believe, though, that Coinbase at least opens the door and the access and ability for people to download an app and be able to buy Bitcoin, versus 10 years ago, that was not how you bought Bitcoin. It was much more technically intensive of a process in order to buy
PayPal,
Bitcoin,
dude.
store Bitcoin.
I remember buying Bitcoin with fucking PayPal.
Really?
Yeah, to use the Silk Road. I didn't hold on to it, but way back in the day when I was living in Germany, we used Bitcoin to buy weed and salvia from the Silk Road, and you had to use PayPal, and the exchange rate was set. I mean, it was all over the place. This is when there'd be premiums popping up all over the place. Actually, we didn't even discuss this crazy technological feat that I don't even know quite how to express because I'm not a developer. But We'll get into more of this tomorrow, but you should know that there's a way now offline to get a distributed but accurate price of Bitcoin anywhere in the world. And I think over time we'll see every exchange use this, and it's insane. So this guy found a way, when people buy Bitcoin, they tend to buy in rounded numbers, and the dollars equate to a certain amount of sats, and you can see all this moving on chain. You can use that data to interpret the price of Bitcoin. I mean, it's an insane feat. It's been done. So now you can get the price of Bitcoin in USD or whatever currency without relying on any trusted third party. You're just looking at the protocol itself, which, as you should know, has nothing to do with dollars. They're orthogonal. There are no dollars in the Bitcoin protocol. It's pretty insane. I'll bring it up after the show and we can play with it. We can talk about it more tomorrow. But yeah, to your point, Q, like Coinbase has such a large funnel that it's kind of like you don't really hope for their downfall because they are introducing so many people to Bitcoin, but it's just you have to get in there and promote better education and less shitcoinery. And I hope that SEC cracks down on their casino of like bullshit snake oil crypto offerings. I hope Brian Armstrong gets around to implementing Lightning. I don't know whether they have or not. You remember that funny exchange between he and Jack? Jack calls him out. Brian makes basically this argument: I've onboarded more people to Bitcoin than ever. And then it's like, okay, well then let's work together and get you up to speed, because right now you're incentivizing people through high fees and basically complexity theater to keep their life savings and their Bitcoin holdings on your platform, which we've discussed ad nauseum, completely defeats the purpose and is extremely high risk, and you will get rugged. It's just a matter of time. By the way, sorry.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, by the way, Coinbase, I got to hand it to them. They own more Bitcoin than I thought. They have 9,480 Bitcoin, which puts them not publicly. This is on their balance sheet. So this puts them at the fourth largest public holder of Bitcoin, with about $1 billion, 1.17 billion.
Okay.
So that's not too shabby.
How many more cycles does Coinbase exist for?
How many more cycles does Coinbase exist for? Maybe one. I mean, in the United States, they're talking about getting out of Dodge. I mean, I think they're gonna have to go the way of Binance and leave this country and just serve jurisdictions that aren't kind of poking under the hood as much as the SEC is going to. I think they're in for a decade or more of lawsuits here, and regulation and kind of industry-wide change. We'll see if they can float past it. But I would recommend, when you look under the hood of most of these institutions, they're doing things that are terribly unethical. And you don't need to look under the hood for Coinbase to know that that's the case. Just go to their homepage and look at what they're offering new users and incentivizing them to gamble on. They pay you in these worthless Chuck E. Cheese coupons to take quizzes about
educational.
Yeah. Little educational courses.
I did all of them and then would just sell it for Bitcoin. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, what is that? That's a promotion of way of selling your time. It's just more wage slavery. They get more clicks. They get more time spent on the website. It's a horrible, it's a horrible system. I don't really know what to do about it. I don't use the platform at all, like full stop. No, I have used it in the past, but I can't support it in any way. I encourage other people to do the same. You should not be buying your Bitcoin from a place that sells other tokens, period. There's no reason to. In 2023, You should be buying non-KYC, peer-to-peer, Azteco, Bisq, RoboSats if you're more, tech savvy, or mine yourself. If you can't do that, use Strike, use Cash App, use Swan, use River, use a Bitcoin only institution.
How have I told you my story of when Odell shamed me for my onboarding system?
What do you mean your onboarding system?
Like when I was talking to him about when I talked to my friends about Bitcoin, my go-to for a while has been, oh, do you have Cash App already? Cool. Open it up. I'll show you where to go to buy Bitcoin. And then I'll just take them there rather than have them download another app or download a wallet and make them go through all right, here's 12 words. Got to learn these. And that way to get some quick skin in the game. If you want to learn more about it, you can. That's
path of least resistance.
Right. But then he was explaining to me but that defeats the purpose of Bitcoin, because then all you're doing is you're introducing them to KYC Bitcoin from the get-go. They never experience or get to know and learn about the censorship resistant aspect of the money. And it's way better to have them download a wallet and you just send them $20 of Bitcoin as here, you have KYC free Bitcoin.
I'll agree with Odell that is better. That is better. But that's a higher friction. That's way higher friction. I tend to have people download a wallet and send them Bitcoin.
What's your go-to hot wallet?
I don't want to recommend a go-to hot wallet here. There's just too much. There's too much controversy. There's too much, custodial, non-custodial. It depends on the person. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. There's some people for whom Wallet of Satoshi is going to work very well, and then there's people that will basically blow up at you for recommending Wallet of Satoshi, even though it's fast and it always works. Something like Mutiny is cool, but your average user is not going to understand what the fuck a progressive web app is. I agree with Odell that there's definitely better ways to do it. Blue Wallet was a good one for quite some time. Zeus is becoming very, very good and fun and user friendly. And extremely Bitcoin only. As far as I know, there's not even dollar denominations on Zeus. At least I don't have them turned on my wallet. There's so many, there's so many out there. But I've always thought, I'm not biased here, I've always found the Cash App experience to be pretty good. Right? It's very fast, and most people, the reality is most white people actually use Venmo. Cash App is very much targeting African Americans and minorities.
Are you saying that I run with non-white people because I have so many friends who use Cash App?
Well, most of our friends use Cash App because of the Bitcoin services and because they're so reliable. And apart from maybe a few hiccups here in the last few weeks, the exchange has never gone down on me when I'm trying to buy Bitcoin, and I can't say that of any other. Can't say that of Swan. Can't say that of Strike. Anytime the price moves, I'm not saying it will never go down. I'm just saying they have a really good track record, and it's super easy to use. And you're right. Most people are at least familiar with the concept of Venmo. You just say, it's like Venmo, except you don't need a bank account to use it, which is genius. That's the underlying, that's how Cash App gets very quick adoption. So I would probably on the whole disagree with Odell on this one, just because the majority of users are not ready for a conversation about their own wallets. They need to first dip in the big toe and get comfortable with the volatility and kind of understand what it is they're doing when they're buying Bitcoin and what's the trade that they're making. And it is a trade. And Cash App is as fine a place to do that as any. I do wish it was more front and center to the application. There was a time when you could buy Bitcoin in 2 clicks on Cash App. It was 2 or 3 clicks. It was right on the homepage. It had news articles. You could learn all about it in the bull market, and the bull market faded, and they kind of pared down and hid hid the Bitcoin back. It's kind of a little bit deeper in the app now. So not cool. Bring it back front and center. But I got to disagree with Odell. I think he's so far. I was thinking of this actually. I was like laughing to myself. I went out on this date this weekend and I'm just sitting there and like all the things that are in my head, like I cannot communicate with this person. I can't wear the Satoshi Nakamoto hat. Can't talk about Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, dude.
I'm just
how
like,
was this date?
It was great. It was great, but I can't tell like my red pilled, anarchist, Bitcoin only self. Like I'm putting on a facade. Like I realized I was like, fuck, dude, it's gonna be a long time before I meet someone who's willing to put up with all my bullshit. Like anti-state nonsense. Like this is gonna be a horrible experience. It was fun. It was super fun.
Where'd you guys go?
But
I want some details.
we went to Japanese onsen, like a spa. And got some, got some good sushi. And then went dancing, went and saw some Colombian music.
Okay.
It was super fun. Yeah, there's no Bitcoin involved. I tried to explain what I do for work, and I was like, this is just not. This is just free. I'm retired. Don't.
So did you say you run the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world?
No.
Did you say you're a micro celebrity?
No. They have a bigger online presence than I do.
They?
Yeah. This woman has a way bigger following.
Wait, is she or is she a they them?
No, it's a she. When we caught dating a they them. We don't tolerate this sort of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, you were the one you just kept saying they. I wanted to.
Yeah, it's a pronoun. It's a pronoun you use when you don't want to reveal someone's name. But I guess what I'm saying, like this does have a point. Like where I'm going off on this tangent, it's like it's kind of hard out there for Bitcoin. Like someone like Odell is so far removed from the reality of like the everyday American. But they're also in some ways lying to yourself. Like you think Matt doesn't use fiat every day of his life? Like how the fuck does he put gas in his car? Like I'm sorry, but fiat is it does work. Like it is convenient. I happen to like, purchasing a plane ticket in 2 minutes with my credit card. Like it's great, We got a long ways to go to compete with that, if I'm being honest. So I think there's greater and lesser degrees of this concept of orange pilling people, which I'm not really a fan of. I've never found it very productive. I don't think that's too insular. Like people are orange pilled after they already understand Bitcoin. It's like, no, be realistic. You got to meet people where they're at. I don't actively try to change people's minds about Bitcoin. People do, they'll come to me when they're ready. And that's changed. When you're very new to Bitcoin, you're very excited about it, you want to talk about it. Horrible OPSEC. But later you realize that people aren't going to change their worldview about money. Are you kidding me? Until they're ready to. This is like the most sensitive. This is almost a taboo topic in America. Like you don't talk about money. It's a very weird thing to do. Talk about finances. So I think most people just take time and multiple touch points. So for me, the goal is subtly give them touch points. Like to give you one example, I've been talking about it with my local butcher. Every time I buy, I'm like, hey, you take Bitcoin, right? And he said yes to my surprise. And then I found out he didn't really know how to do it. So I've been helping him, bring him Sats cards, bring him a hardware wallet. You know what I mean? And we go from there. And over the course of our relationship of like a few months of me like being loyal to this vendor, I have, I guess, quote unquote, orange pilled them. Right. But it's not a one and done. There's not like a one and done package deal. Your education. No. I'm still learning so much every day. Like I'm still very new to this, compared to other people. And there's always someone out there who knows more. So I guess the point is your strategy has to be a little more low time preference and long term than that. And I can bear the thought of people being on these platforms temporarily. as they get comfortable, because I would rather that, honestly, than them, losing their Bitcoin trying to set up a, 99 of 100 multi-sig on day one.
No, I like to your point too, rather than, like I hate sometimes trying to over explain Bitcoin. That's the thing that I think gets lost on a lot of people is people don't want their worldview shattered. They don't want to be called dumb. They don't want to be told that the things that they were raised to believe, or around, especially around money, were the wrong things to believe. And finding what people care about tends to be the easiest way to nudge them in the right direction. But to your point, people will come to you to ask the question when they want to, not when you want to.
Yeah. It's like anything. We're addicted and dependent on this fiat system. So, the first step there is admitting you have a problem. And in America, it's very hard to, as much as we like to, complain about how dicey things are here financially and how hard it is to make a living, we've got it pretty good compared
Ooh.
to currency, country that's inflating at 50% plus per year, super unstable. I know, like, we like to pretend we have insurrection here, but super unstable countries. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see the problem that it solves when our boiling point is been slow coming.
Totally.
It's hard to feel it.
I want to shout out on Zap.stream Pepito. We will probably never see the fruits of our time invested into Bitcoin. It won't be for this generation, I think. I totally agree with that. I think I'll be old and gray by the time we start to like really see the
Like world adoption, or what do you mean?
full, not even world adoption, like almost like global daily use. Like I think we'll see world
But at what
adoption.
scale? We already have that. I mean,
Exactly. Like I'm talking like as the primary monetary network. And I think that is a long ways away, quite frankly. I think we'll see things like the primary form of institutional saving before that, the primary source of
personal savings.
Of sovereign savings. I think we will see those long before that, sure. But the truly what we are fighting is not for everyone to save in Bitcoin. It's for Bitcoin to become the monetary standard. And for that to happen, or the time it will take for that adoption, I think it will take a longer time than people want to admit.
Well, we have a lot of work to do, man, not in terms of educating people, but in terms of making infrastructure that can actually compete with Visa and MasterCard. Like, I hate to tell you, but Lightning ain't it. Like, not in its current form. It's not going to do that for people. Like, we need more competitive solutions there if we want to make this payment stream possible. And I'm sorry to say that it may require changes to the Bitcoin core protocol. I don't know. We'll see. But and the savings narrative is kind of a hard one. You have to convince someone to hold something for 4 years before it works. I mean, it's tough out there. I mean, those who get in and who adopt it early, obviously, are going to massively benefit from the price appreciation, which will lead others to come. But on what social layer they're using Bitcoin, I mean, that remains to be seen. I think we are very extreme, and a small minority example users. And I don't think it's realistic for everyone in the world to get to our stage with the current tools available. So I think on our side, there's a lot of kind of R&D that needs to happen.
I would agree with that. I also feel like that's a great place to put a bow on the first episode of the week. And
oh, wow. Hour already.
Yes, sir.
Time flies when things actually happen. When we have news.
I mean, my fear is that we honestly did the news today and then there won't be another story all week. So we might need to reevaluate and spread these news stories out throughout the week.
Yeah, we'll keep covering them. I'm interested to see. So far, we haven't had any substantial movement at all from the Microstrategy. I'm going to check back in and see what happens to Microstrategy stock itself, And then we can probably get into deeper questions about whether or not you should venture into equities of companies that hold Bitcoin at all.
I'm always down for that debate with you.
Yeah.
But it's been another wonderful episode. I'm gonna kill the stream.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks